You filthy little parasite! Stay away from my car before your disgusting poverty rubs off on it. The venomous words exploded from billionaire Richard Hawthorne's mouth as he towered over 13-year-old Zara Williams. The homeless black girl had been quietly sleeping near Technocore Industries' fence when his $10 million hypercar pulled up. Hawthorne sneered to his security team. Get this street trash hauled away before it contaminates my property. But 8 hours later, Hawthorne's world crumbled. His prototype hypercar died completely. 20 elite engineers couldn't fix it. A $500 million presentation hung by a thread. Then Zara stepped forward. I know what's wrong, she said quietly. Hawthorne's laughter cut like glass. You? Fix what my best minds can't? The girl looked him dead in the eye. Give me a minute. 1 minute. 60 seconds that would turn a tech empire upside down and make a billionaire beg for forgiveness. Technocore Industries stood like a glass monument to Silicon Valley ambition. Its chrome and steel headquarters pierced the California sky, housing some of the world's most advanced automotive technology. Inside those gleaming walls, genius-level engineers crafted the future of transportation. Richard Hawthorne had built this empire from nothing. The son of a small-town mechanic, he'd clawed his way to billionaire status through ruthless intelligence and an iron will. Now, at 52, he commanded respect from world leaders and struck fear into competitors' hearts. But success had poisoned his soul. The higher he climbed, the more he despised those below him, especially people who reminded him of his humble beginnings. Zara Williams represented everything Hawthorne had fought to escape. At 13, she'd been living on the streets for 6 months after aging out of the foster system early. Her crime? Defending a younger kid from an abusive caretaker. The system had failed her, but it hadn't broken her spirit. Every morning, she positioned herself near Technocore's fence. Not to beg or cause trouble, but to watch. The daily rhythm of engineers testing prototype vehicles fascinated her. She'd notebook every detail, tracking patterns others missed. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Technocore's head of engineering, arrived at 6 a.m. sharp. A brilliant woman who'd earned her Ph.D. at 25, she commanded respect in a male-dominated field. But today, pressure weighed heavy on her shoulders. Status report, she called to her team as they gathered around the hypercar prototype. The vehicle represented 5 years of cutting-edge development. Its AI-powered engine could reach 300 miles per hour while producing 0 emissions. Tomorrow's investor presentation would secure $500 million in funding for mass production. All systems green, Dr. Vasquez, reported senior engineer James Mitchell. We're ready for the final stress test. But something felt wrong. The past week had brought intermittent glitches, minor electrical hiccups that disappeared before diagnostics could identify the source. The team had dismissed them as normal pre-launch jitters. Zara had noticed something else entirely. From her observation post, she'd tracked a disturbing pattern. The glitches always occurred on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. They coincided perfectly with electromagnetic testing from the new 5G tower installed just 3 days ago. But who would listen to a homeless black girl? At 10 a.m., Hawthorne's convoy arrived. 3 black SUVs surrounded his personal vehicle as if he were visiting a war zone. Security swept the area, ensuring no undesirables could spoil his inspection. Sir, there's a vagrant by the fence, reported head of security Mike Thompson. Should I remove her? Hawthorne's eyes fixed on Zara with laser intensity. Something about her defiant posture triggered his rage. She wasn't cowering or begging, she was watching, analyzing. It reminded him too much of his own hungry childhood eyes. You know what, Thompson? Let's make an example. Hawthorne strode toward the fence with predatory confidence. Employees stopped working to watch. This was about to become a show. You, he barked at Zara. What gives you the right to squat on my property like some diseased animal? Zara looked up calmly. I'm on public property, sir. Just watching. Watching? Hawthorne's voice dripped with mockery. Planning your next theft? Figuring out how to break into my company and steal something valuable? No, sir, I'm interested in how your prototype works. The billionaire's laughter echoed across the parking lot. Several employees pulled out phones to record what was clearly becoming viral content. Interested? A street rat like you wouldn't understand the first thing about advanced engineering. You probably can't even spell technology. Actually, Zara said quietly. "I've been tracking some patterns in your testing that might—" "Patterns?" Hawthorne cut her off viciously. "The only pattern here is worthless people thinking they deserve attention from their betters. Thompson, I want this piece of human garbage removed from my sight, permanently." The security guard stepped forward, radio in hand. "Should I call the police, sir? Have her arrested for loitering?" "Better yet," Hawthorne's eyes gleamed with malice. "Let's call social services. Make sure this little troublemaker gets locked up where she belongs." As security moved toward Zara, fate intervened with perfect timing. The hypercar's engine died with a mechanical wheeze. Every dashboard light flickered and went dark. The most advanced vehicle on Earth had become an expensive paperweight. What the hell just happened? Hawthorne spun toward his engineering team. Dr. Vasquez rushed to the car with diagnostic equipment. Her face went pale as she read the results. "Complete system failure across all networks. Engine, electronics, AI processing, everything's dead." "Then fix it." "We're trying, sir, but—" "No buts. Tomorrow's presentation cannot fail. Get every engineer in here. Cancel all leave. I don't care if it takes all night." Word spread through Technocore like wildfire. The prototype, their crown jewel, was completely dead. Engineers flooded in from every department. The parking lot transformed into a high-tech emergency room. Diagnostic cables snaked across the concrete. Laptop screens glowed in the afternoon sun. 20 of the world's top automotive engineers swarmed the disabled prototype like surgeons around a critical patient. "Run full electromagnetic spectrum analysis," Dr. Vasquez ordered. "Check all power coupling systems," called out James Mitchell. "Swap the primary AI processing unit," suggested another engineer. For 4 hours, they systematically replaced every major component. New engine control modules, fresh battery packs, backup AI processors. The car remained stubbornly dead. Hawthorne paced like a caged tiger, his fury growing with each failed attempt. He screamed at his team, threatened their jobs, and made increasingly desperate phone calls to investors. "Status report," he demanded every 30 minutes. "Still working, sir?" Dr. Vasquez replied, sweat beading on her forehead despite the cool air. "Work faster. I have 50 investors flying in tomorrow morning expecting to see automotive history." The pressure was crushing. Careers built over decades teetered on the edge of destruction. These weren't just jobs. They were life's work. Families, mortgages, children's college funds. How can 20 genius-level engineers be stumped by a simple mechanical failure? Hawthorne raged during an emergency meeting. "Sir, this isn't mechanical," Dr. Vasquez explained patiently. "The diagnostic patterns suggest electromagnetic interference, but we can't isolate the source." "Then find it. I don't pay you millions to make excuses. We've scanned every frequency, checked all power sources within a mile radius. Whatever's causing this is invisible to our equipment. Invisible? Nothing's invisible to science." But something was invisible to them, something painfully obvious to fresh eyes watching from outside their bubble of expertise. Outside the glass walls, Zara continued her vigil. She'd watched this exact scenario unfold 3 times before on a smaller scale. Each time, the engineers had focused on internal systems while missing the obvious external factor: the new 5G tower. Its electromagnetic emissions were creating interference patterns that disrupted the car's sensitive AI processing unit. The timing correlation was perfect, but the Technocore team was too stressed and tunnel vision to see it. They were looking for complex problems requiring complex solutions. Sometimes the answer is embarrassingly simple. As evening approached, desperation reached a fever pitch. The parking lot looked like a battlefield. Discarded components littered the ground. Engineers slumped against walls, exhausted from 8 hours of futile effort. Hawthorne called another emergency meeting in the glass conference room. His face had aged a decade in a single day. "Options," he demanded. "Sir, we've exhausted every diagnostic protocol," admitted Dr. Vasquez. "Without identifying the interference source, we're essentially guessing." "Guessing? I didn't build a billion-dollar company on guessing." "Perhaps we should postpone the presentation." "Absolutely not. Postponement means canceled funding. Canceled funding means layoffs, massive layoffs, starting with anyone who can't fix this problem." The threat hung in the air like poison gas. 20 brilliant careers teetered on the edge of destruction because of one stubborn vehicle. Senior engineer Carl Rodriguez, a father of 3, spoke quietly. "Sir, Maybe we're missing something fundamental. Like what? I don't know. Fresh perspective, different approach. James Mitchell, a 20-year veteran engineer, finally spoke the words everyone was thinking. "Sir, I don't think we can solve this tonight." Hawthorne's face turned purple with rage. "Then you're all fired. Every last incompetent piece of— Excuse me?" The voice came from outside, small, clear, and impossibly calm. All heads turned toward the fence where Zara Williams stood in the gathering darkness. Security had given up chasing her away hours ago, too focused on the crisis to care about one homeless girl. "I think I know what's wrong," she said simply. The conference room fell silent. 20 engineers stared at a 13-year-old homeless girl through the glass wall. Hawthorne's laughter started as a chuckle and built to a roar. "Oh, this is perfect! The street rat thinks she can solve what my engineers can't." He keyed the intercom system, broadcasting his voice across the entire facility. "Attention, everyone! Our homeless friend here believes she can fix our little problem. Should we let her try?" The cruel announcement echoed through every floor. Employees stopped working to watch. The moment was being live-streamed on multiple phones. Dr. Vasquez felt sick to her stomach. This wasn't just cruel. It was about to become a public relations nightmare. But something in Zara's eyes stopped her from protesting. The girl wasn't seeking attention or charity. She looked confident, like she actually knew something they didn't. "You know what?" Hawthorne continued his broadcast. "I'm feeling generous. If this little nobody can fix what 20 engineers cannot, I'll personally give her $10,000. But when she fails, and she will fail spectacularly, she's banned from this property forever. The stakes couldn't be higher. Careers, funding, and now a child's dignity hung in the balance." Zara nodded calmly. "Fair enough." The security gate buzzed open. For the first time in 6 months, Zara Williams stepped onto Technocore property. 6 years earlier, 8-year-old Zara Williams crouched in the basement of Sunshine Group home, surrounded by darkness and the hum of broken machinery. Above her, 12 other foster kids shivered in their beds as another San Francisco winter night turned brutal. The heating system had failed again. Mrs. Patterson, the overworked house manager, stood helplessly beside the ancient boiler. "I've called 3 repair companies. Nobody can come until Monday." That meant 3 days of freezing children. While the adults argued about emergency protocols and budget constraints, Zara slipped away unnoticed. She'd always been drawn to how things worked, or in this case, why they didn't work. The boiler looked intimidating with its maze of pipes and gauges. But Zara had learned something important from watching her foster siblings struggle with homework. Adults often made simple things complicated. She traced each pipe with her finger, following the flow of water like reading a story. Here, the hot water started its journey. There, it should return after warming the radiators, but something was wrong with the plot. A valve near the return line was only half open, probably stuck from years of mineral buildup. Zara found a wrench in the maintenance closet and carefully turned it until water flowed freely. The boiler rumbled to life within minutes. "How did you—" Mrs. Patterson stared in amazement as heat began flowing through the building. "I just followed where the water was supposed to go," Zara explained. "It was stuck, so I unstuck it." That night changed everything for Zara. She'd discovered her superpower, seeing patterns that others missed because they were too busy looking for complicated answers. Over the next 5 years, Zara bounced between 7 different foster homes. Each placement taught her new survival skills, but also deepened her understanding of how systems, both mechanical and human, really worked. At the Morrison house, she fixed their ancient washing machine by realizing the broken motor was just overwhelmed by unbalanced loads. At the Carter family's apartment, she solved their mysterious electrical problems by noticing how the lights dimmed whenever the refrigerator cycled on. But Zara's gift extended beyond machines. She could read people with the same clarity. She knew Mr. Rodriguez drank heavily not because he was mean, but because his back injury made sleeping impossible. She understood that Mrs. Williams, no relation, yelled at the children because her own childhood had been filled with screaming. "Adults make things complicated," became Zara's guiding philosophy. "Kids see what's really there." Her last foster placement ended 6 months ago when she couldn't ignore what she saw anymore. Tommy Carter, a shy 7-year-old with bruises that appeared every Monday, had been placed with the seemingly perfect Davidson family. They lived in a beautiful house, attended church regularly, and spoke about their calling to help troubled children. But Zara noticed patterns the social workers missed. Tommy's bruises always appeared in places easily hidden by clothing. His behavior shifted dramatically after private discipline sessions with Mr. Davidson. Most telling, Tommy would flinch whenever any adult raised their voice, even playfully. When Zara reported her observations, she was told to mind her own business and stop causing trouble with wild accusations. The breaking point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. Zara heard Tommy sobbing behind the locked door of Davidson's study. The man's voice carried through the walls. "You're worthless. Nobody will ever love a defective kid like you." Something inside Zara snapped. She burst into the room just as Davidson raised his hand to strike the trembling boy. Without thinking, she grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from the desk. "Touch him again, and I'll crack your skull open," she said with deadly calm. Davidson's face went white. This 13-year-old girl looked capable of following through on her threat. "Tommy, get your stuff. We're leaving." "You can't," Davidson started. "Watch me." They walked out that night and never looked back. Tommy found safety with relatives in Oregon. Zara chose the streets over returning to a system that protected predators and punished truth-tellers. For 6 months, she'd survived on intelligence and observation skills. She learned which restaurants threw away perfectly good food at closing time. She discovered which library branches stayed warm longest and asked the fewest questions. And she found Technocore. The gleaming technology campus fascinated her like nothing ever had. Every morning, she positioned herself at the fence to watch the daily rhythm of innovation. The engineers reminded her of foster parents, brilliant in their specific areas but often blind to obvious patterns. They focused so intensely on complex problems that simple solutions became invisible. She watched them test the hypercar prototype dozens of times over 6 months. Each trial revealed new patterns, timing correlations, environmental factors that the engineers dismissed as irrelevant. But Zara had learned something the adults hadn't. Sometimes the most important details are the ones everyone agrees to ignore. 3 days ago, the new 5G tower began operations. Zara immediately noticed how its testing schedule aligned perfectly with the car's mysterious glitches. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, 2 to 4 p.m., every time. The pattern was screaming at anyone willing to listen, but pattern recognition required something the stressed engineers had lost, the ability to see with fresh eyes. Standing at the fence tonight, watching 20 brilliant minds struggle with what seemed obvious to her, Zara felt a familiar sensation. The same clarity she'd experienced in that basement 6 years ago, the same confidence that came from following simple logic to its inevitable conclusion. Adults make things complicated. Kids see what's really there. And what Zara saw was about to change everything. The glass doors of Technocore Industries slid open with a whisper, revealing a scene of barely contained chaos. 20 of the world's most brilliant engineers surrounded the dead hypercar like mourners at a funeral. Diagnostic cables snaked across the polished concrete. Laptop screens cast ghostly glows in the gathering darkness. 8 hours of failure had taken its toll. Dr. Elena Vasquez rubbed her temples as another diagnostic scan returned the same maddening result. Complete system failure with no identifiable cause. Her 20-year career had never faced anything like this. "Try bypassing the tertiary power coupling," she instructed James Mitchell, though they both knew it was another shot in the dark. "Already tried that 3 times, he replied wearily. "Same result." Hawthorne prowled the perimeter like a predator, his perfectly pressed suit now wrinkled from stress. Every few minutes he'd explode at his team with fresh threats and accusations. "How can 20 PhD-level engineers be stumped by a simple car problem?" He raged into his phone during yet another desperate call to investors. "No, I don't need more time. I need competence." The pressure was suffocating. Careers built over decades teetered on the edge of destruction. These weren't just jobs, they were life's work. Research dreams, families' futures. Senior engineer Carl Rodriguez pulled Dr. Vasquez aside. "Elena, we need to face reality. Whatever's wrong with this car, we're not going to solve it tonight." "We have to," she whispered back. You heard Hawthorne. Mass layoffs if we fail. Maybe it's time to consider postponing. Postponement means canceled funding. You know that. Through the chaos, nobody noticed the small figure who'd been watching from outside the fence for 6 months. Zara Williams had witnessed this exact scenario play out 3 times before, though never at this scale. The pattern was so obvious to her that she almost couldn't believe the engineers were missing it. At 9:47 p.m., Dr. Vasquez called for another team meeting. The engineers gathered in a circle around the silent hypercar, their faces etched with defeat. "Status report," she said, though everyone already knew the answer. "Complete electromagnetic spectrum analysis, negative for interference sources," reported one engineer. "Full diagnostic of all AI processing units. Hardware shows perfect functionality," added another. "Power systems, cooling systems, even the tire pressure sensors, everything tests normally individually but won't integrate." Dr. Vasquez nodded grimly. "Recommendations?" The silence stretched for 30 seconds. Finally, James Mitchell spoke the words everyone was thinking. "I don't think we can solve this with our current approach." Hawthorne's voice cut through the night like a blade. "Then find a new approach, or find new jobs." That's when Zara stepped closer to the fence. "Excuse me," she called out clearly. Every head turned toward the chain-link barrier. 20 exhausted engineers stared at the 13-year-old homeless girl they'd watched security chase away dozens of times. "I think I know what's wrong," Zara said simply. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Hawthorne's laughter erupted like machine gun fire. "Oh, this is absolutely perfect." He strode toward the fence with theatrical swagger. "The street rat thinks she can solve what my engineers can't." He keyed his radio, broadcasting across the entire facility. "Attention all Technocore employees. Our resident vagrant believes she has insights into our technical difficulties. Should we invite her professional opinion?" The cruel announcement echoed through every floor. Windows lit up as employees stopped their work to witness whatever spectacle was unfolding in the parking lot. Dr. Vasquez felt sick. This was about to become a viral disaster. "Sir," she started, but Hawthorne waved her silent. "No, Elena, let's see what kind of genius wisdom our little friend has to offer." He turned back to Zara with mock formality. "Please, enlighten us with your vast engineering expertise." Zara remained perfectly calm. "I've been watching your tests for 6 months. This car has glitched 3 times before, always on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m. Dr. Vasquez's eyebrows rose. That was actually accurate. "Your point?" Hawthorne sneered. 3 days ago, you installed a new 5G tower." Zara pointed toward the cellular equipment barely visible beyond the parking structure. "Its testing schedule runs Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, 2 to 4 p.m. The parking lot fell silent except for the hum of diagnostic equipment. James Mitchell pulled up testing logs on his tablet. His face went pale. "She's right about the timing correlation." "Correlation isn't causation," Hawthorne snapped. "Any first-year statistics student knows that." "But electromagnetic interference from 5G towers affecting sensitive electronics is a documented phenomenon," Dr. Vasquez said quietly. "We should have checked. Should have, could have, would have." Hawthorne's voice rose to a roar. "I don't want excuses. I want results." He turned back to Zara with vicious intensity. "You know what? I'm feeling generous tonight. If this little nobody can fix what 20 engineers cannot, I'll personally give her $10,000. The crowd of employees pressed closer to windows and doorways. Phones appeared, recording what was clearly about to become internet legend. "But when she fails, and she will fail spectacularly, she's permanently banned from this property. Security will arrest her for trespassing if she's ever seen here again." The stakes couldn't be higher. 20 careers, $500 million in funding, and now a child's dignity hangs in the balance. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward. "Sir, maybe we shouldn't—" "Shouldn't what? Give some street trash the chance to embarrass herself?" Hawthorne's eyes gleamed with malice. "This will be educational for everyone." He gestured dramatically toward the hypercar. "Well, we're waiting for your miracle." Zara looked at the crowd gathering behind the glass walls. Dozens of employees watched from windows. Multiple phones streamed the confrontation live to social media. She took a deep breath and stepped closer to the fence. "You really want me to try?" she asked. Oh, absolutely. Show us what you've learned from living in garbage cans. The crowd tensed. This was the moment everyone would remember. Dr. Vasquez found herself hoping this brave girl had an exit strategy. The humiliation Hawthorne was orchestrating would be brutal and public. But something in Zara's eyes suggested she wasn't seeking attention or pity. She looked confident, like she actually understood something they'd missed. All right, Zara said, her voice carrying clearly across the parking lot. But I need to get close enough to show you what you're missing. Fine. Thompson, open the gate. Let our little expert examine the evidence. The security gate buzzed open with an electronic click that seemed to echo across Silicon Valley. For the first time in 6 months, Zara Williams stepped onto Technocore property. The distance between the fence and the hypercar stretched like a football field, with hundreds of eyes tracking her every movement. She walked steadily toward the center of the parking lot where the disabled vehicle sat under blazing floodlights. Each step carried the weight of impossible expectations. 20 feet from the car, she stopped. Dr. Vasquez, she called out, could you start a timer on your phone? A timer? For what? Zara looked directly at Hawthorne, then at the crowd of engineers and executives watching from every angle. Her voice cut through the night air with perfect clarity. Give me a minute. The parking lot fell absolutely silent. Even the diagnostic equipment seemed to quiet its electronic humming. Hawthorne's laughter came out as a strangled cough. 1 minute? My team has been working for 8 hours. Zara's response was spoken with the quiet confidence of someone who'd spent 6 months preparing for this exact moment. Sometimes 1 minute with the right eyes beats 8 hours with the wrong ones. Dr. Vasquez raised her phone, finger hovering over the timer. Are you sure about this? Start the clock, Zara said simply. The timer began counting down from 60 seconds, and in that moment, everyone watching knew they were about to witness something that would change how they thought about intelligence, observation, and who deserves to be heard. 59 seconds, 58, 57. The most important minute in Technocore's history had begun. Start the clock, Zara said simply. Dr. Vasquez's finger pressed the timer. The digital countdown began. 60 seconds. The parking lot held its collective breath. Hundreds of employees watched from windows, their phones recording what would become the most viewed corporate video in Silicon Valley history. 20 exhausted engineers stood frozen in place, skeptical but desperate enough to hope. Hawthorne crossed his arms with theatrical smugness. This should be entertaining. Watch carefully, everyone. This is what happens when desperation makes you listen to delusions. Security guards positioned themselves strategically, ready to escort Zara away the moment she inevitably failed. The live streams on multiple phones had thousands of viewers tuning in as word spread across social media. Zara ignored the circus completely. Her focus narrowed to the disabled hypercar like a laser beam. She began walking slowly around the vehicle, her worn sneakers silent on the concrete. Every step was deliberate, calculated. Timer, 55 seconds. First question, she called out loud enough for everyone to hear. Dr. Vasquez, when did this car fail before? The exact dates and times. Dr. Vasquez pulled up testing logs on her tablet, surprised by the specificity of the request. Let me see. October 15th at 2:47 p.m. October 17th at 3:12 p.m. October 22nd at 2:33 p.m. All Tuesday or Thursday afternoons between 2 and 4 p.m., Zara confirmed without looking at the data. Exactly what I told you from watching outside that fence. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. How could a homeless girl have better records than their diagnostic computers? James Mitchell checked his own logs frantically, his fingers shaking as he scrolled through months of data. She's completely accurate, down to the minute. Lucky guess, Hawthorne muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Vasquez frowned at her tablet. How did you remember those exact times? I wrote them down, Zara replied matter-of-factly. Every glitch, every recovery, every pattern. I've been documenting your car's behavior for 6 months. Timer, 45 seconds. Zara stopped walking and pointed toward the cellular tower visible beyond the parking structure. Its red warning lights blinked steadily in the darkness like mechanical heartbeats. Second question, when did that 5G tower begin full operational testing? Dr. Vasquez looked confused. I don't know. That's telecom infrastructure, not our department. 3 days ago, Zara said calmly. October 23rd. I watched them activate it Tuesday morning at 8:47 a.m. The testing schedule runs Tuesday and Thursday afternoons from 2 to 4 p.m., exactly when your car fails. Senior engineer Carl Rodriguez pulled out his phone, frantically searching municipal records. His face went pale as he found the installation permits. She's right. Installation permit was filed for October 23rd. How did she? I pay attention, Zara interrupted. When you live outside, you notice everything that changes in your environment. The crowd's murmur grew louder. This wasn't a lucky guess. This was a systematic observation spanning months of data collection. James Mitchell stared at Zara with growing amazement. But you couldn't have known the testing schedule. That's proprietary telecom information. I didn't need to know it officially. I watched the pattern. Zara pulled out her notebook and flipped to a page covered with timestamps and small sketches. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m., the tower's transmission intensity increases. You can see it in how birds change their flight patterns around the antenna. Electronics in nearby buildings start glitching. The pattern is obvious if you're looking. Dr. Vasquez examined the notebook's crude but detailed observations. Each entry was time-stamped and cross-referenced with weather conditions, traffic patterns, and observed electronic malfunctions in the area. This is surprisingly thorough, she admitted. Timer, 30 seconds. Zara walked directly to the hypercar's front end, crouching beside the hood with practiced precision. She pulled a measuring tape from her backpack, a tool that seemed impossibly professional for a homeless girl to own. Third question. Where exactly is your AI processing unit located in this vehicle? Directly beneath the hood, center-mounted for optimal cooling and electromagnetic protection, Dr. Vasquez replied automatically. Perfect. Zara stood and drew an imaginary line from the 5G tower through the air to the exact spot where she'd been crouching. Direct line of sight electromagnetic interference. No barriers, no interference dampening. The tower's test signals hit your AI processor at maximum strength. She opened her notebook and held up a detailed diagram that made several engineers gasp. It showed the tower's position, elevation angles, the parking space coordinates, and the car's internal layout with mathematical precision. I've been calculating the interference vector for 3 days. Every time that tower transmits high-power test signals, your car's AI gets overwhelmed by electromagnetic interference and triggers its safety shutdown protocol. Dr. Vasquez stared at the diagram with growing amazement. The drawing was crude but technically sophisticated, showing understanding of concepts most high school students never encountered. But our electromagnetic scans didn't detect anything significant, protested engineer Sarah Carter. Because you scanned when the tower wasn't testing. The interference is intermittent, not constant. Zara flipped through her notebook pages, revealing charts that tracked scanning times versus interference windows. Check your scan logs. I bet they were all done outside the 4 p.m. testing periods. James Mitchell's face went white as he scrolled through diagnostic records on his tablet. Every scan, morning sessions at 9 a.m., evening verification at 6 p.m., never during afternoon testing periods. Exactly, Zara confirmed. You missed the problem because you weren't looking when the problem was happening. Timer, 15 seconds. The parking lot buzzed with urgent whispers as engineers realized the implications. Their diagnostic approach had been fundamentally flawed, not because of incompetence, but because of timing assumptions. The solution is simple, Zara announced to the stunned crowd. Move the car 50 feet in any direction to break the direct line of sight or install electromagnetic shielding around the AI processing unit. She pointed to 3 different parking spaces within the complex. Any of those locations would work, or you could add a Faraday cage around the AI housing. That's a mesh barrier that blocks electromagnetic signals while allowing normal operation. Carl Rodriguez exchanged shocked glances with his colleagues. She's describing industrial-grade electromagnetic interference mitigation. How do you know about Faraday cages? Dr. Vasquez asked. Public library, Zara replied simply. Physics textbooks in the reference section. I've been reading them for 3 years. Timer, 5 seconds. Test my theory, Zara challenged the assembled engineers. Move the car and watch what happens. If I'm wrong, you've lost nothing. If I'm right, you've saved your presentation and everyone's jobs. The crowd leaned forward in collective anticipation. Phones zoomed in on Zara's confident face. The live stream viewer count had exploded to over 10,000 people watching the showdown. Timer, 0 seconds. Dr. Vasquez's phone beeped. Time! Absolute silence blanketed the parking lot. 20 world-class engineers stared at a 13-year-old homeless girl who just delivered a comprehensive diagnostic analysis, identified the root cause with mathematical precision, and provided multiple testable solutions, all in exactly 60 seconds. Hawthorne's face had gone from smug confidence to shocked disbelief to something approaching panic. The video of his humiliation was already spreading across social media platforms at viral speed. That's just theoretical speculation, he stammered. Unproven assumptions. Then test it, Zara said simply. Science is about testing hypotheses, right? Dr. Vasquez looked at her team. 8 hours of failure had taught them painful humility. Everyone, help push the vehicle 50 feet toward the east wall. Let's see if she's right. Elena, you can't be serious, Hawthorne protested weakly. Taking diagnostic advice from a street vagrant? Sir, with respect, our current approach has produced 0 results. Maybe it's time to try something different. 20 engineers surrounded the hypercar with newfound energy. Despite weighing nearly 4,000 pounds, the vehicle rolled smoothly on its advanced magnetic levitation tires. They positioned it exactly 50 feet from its original location, breaking the direct line of sight to the 5G tower. Dr. Vasquez approached the driver's door with her diagnostic tablet, her hands trembling slightly from exhaustion and anticipation. The parking lot fell silent again as hundreds of people held their breath. She pressed the startup sequence. Nothing happened. For 3 agonizing seconds, the hypercar remained completely dead. Hawthorne's relieved laughter began building in his throat. Then the engine hummed to life with its characteristic whisper-quiet purr. Every dashboard light cascaded from red to amber to green in perfect sequence. The AI systems initialized with their characteristic musical chime. Diagnostic readings showed 100% functionality across all networks. The most advanced vehicle on Earth was running flawlessly. Dr. Vasquez stared at her readings in stunned silence. All systems are nominal. Perfect functionality across all networks. Engine optimization at maximum efficiency. The crowd erupted in spontaneous applause and cheers that echoed off the glass building facades. Engineers who'd been facing termination minutes earlier were jumping, hugging each other, and shouting with joy. But the celebration died as quickly as it started when everyone remembered what had just happened. A 13-year-old homeless girl had solved in 60 seconds what 20 PhD-level engineers couldn't figure out in 8 hours. The silence that followed was more powerful than any applause. The hypercar's engine purred like a satisfied predator in the sudden silence. Dashboard lights painted the concrete in emerald green, the color of complete success. Every diagnostic system showed perfect functionality. But the real moment of truth wasn't the car starting. It was the look on Richard Hawthorne's face. For 30 seconds, he stood frozen in the center of the parking lot, his mouth opening and closing like a fish drowning in air. The billionaire who'd built an empire on crushing others had just been intellectually demolished by a 13-year-old homeless girl, in front of hundreds of witnesses, with thousands more watching on live stream. Dr. Vasquez approached Zara with her diagnostic tablet, the screen glowing with perfect readings. Miss Williams, in 20 years of engineering, I have never witnessed anything like what you just accomplished. Her voice carried across the silent parking lot with crystal clarity. You identified a complex electromagnetic interference pattern, calculated line-of-sight vectors, and provided a solution that our entire team missed, in 60 seconds. The weight of those words settled over the crowd like a blanket of shocked recognition. James Mitchell walked slowly towards Zara, his 20-year veteran confidence completely shattered. How did you? The analysis alone should have taken our team days to complete. I wasn't doing formal analysis, Zara replied gently. I was just watching patterns. When you live outside, you notice how everything connects. Birds avoiding certain areas, electronics glitching at specific times, weather affecting signal strength. She gestured toward her notebook, still open to the detailed diagrams. Adults overcomplicate things because they're taught to look for complex solutions. Sometimes the answer is simple. You just have to see it. Carl Rodriguez examined the notebook more closely, his engineering mind struggling to process what he was seeing. These calculations, the geometric projections. Where did you learn this? Public library, physics textbooks, YouTube videos about electromagnetic theory. Zara's voice held no pride, just matter-of-fact honesty. When you have nowhere to go during the day, you find places to learn. Dr. Vasquez shook her head in amazement. But understanding theory is different from practical application. You identified variables we missed completely. Because you were looking inside the car for problems, I was watching everything around the car. Zara pointed to the 5G tower, its red lights still blinking steadily. You can't solve electromagnetic interference by staring at the thing being interfered with. You have to find the source. The crowd pressed closer to the windows, phones recording every word. The live stream chat exploded with comments as viewers realized they were witnessing something historic. Senior engineer Sarah Carter stepped forward hesitantly. The Faraday cage solution you mentioned, that's graduate-level electromagnetic engineering. It's basic physics, Zara corrected politely. Metal mesh blocks radio waves. Same principle as a microwave oven door. The theory isn't complicated once you understand how electromagnetic waves work. Hawthorne finally found his voice, though it came out as a strangled whisper. This is impossible. A street kid can't know more than trained engineers. She doesn't know anymore, Dr. Vasquez said firmly. She saw what we missed because she wasn't trapped by our assumptions. Fresh perspective beats experience tonight. The hypercar's soft humming filled the silence as everyone processed the implications. Tomorrow's presentation was saved. Hundreds of jobs were secure. A $500 million funding round would proceed as planned, all because a homeless girl had been paying attention when no one else was. The electromagnetic shielding installation will take about 2 hours, Dr. Vasquez announced to her team. We can have it completed tonight and run full diagnostics at dawn. No need, Zara said quietly. Just park 50 feet from any direct line of sight to transmission towers. Problem solved permanently. James Mitchell laughed, a sound mixing amazement with professional humiliation. 50 feet. The most expensive engineering problem in company history, solved by moving a car 50 feet. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in diagnostic equipment. 47 combined years of advanced engineering education among the team. 8 hours of desperate troubleshooting, defeated by a homeless girl with a notebook and common sense. Hawthorne stood in the center of it all, watching his world crumble in real time. The video of his verbal assault on Zara, followed by her spectacular vindication, was already trending across social media platforms. #Street Genius was climbing the charts. #Justice for Zara was spreading globally. His corporate reputation, built on intimidation and superiority, was being destroyed by a 13-year-old who'd solved his problem with kindness and intelligence. Dr. Vasquez extended her hand to Zara with formal respect. Miss Williams, on behalf of Technocore Industries, thank you for saving our presentation and our careers. As they shook hands, spontaneous applause erupted from every window of the building. Hundreds of employees cheered for the girl who'd rescued their company from disaster. But the real applause came from thousands of live stream viewers whose comments flooded social media. This girl is incredible. Billionaire humiliated by homeless genius. She deserves everything good in life. The moment stretched with perfect cinematographic tension. Zara standing beside the purring hypercar surrounded by humbled engineers. Hawthorne isolated in his shame. The crowd celebrated through glass walls. It was the moment when power, intelligence, and justice aligned perfectly, and everyone present knew they'd witnessed something that would change how they thought about genius, observation, and who deserves to be heard. The applause died slowly as reality set in. Zara Williams, the street rat who'd been publicly humiliated 8 hours earlier, had just saved Technocore Industries from complete disaster. Hawthorne stood frozen, his face cycling through emotions too complex to name. The $10,000 promise he'd made mockingly now loomed like a debt to his soul. Dr. Vasquez broke the silence. Sir, about the compensation you offered, she earned it, Hawthorne whispered, his voice barely audible. Every penny. But money was the smallest part of what was about to change. Dr. Vasquez turned to Zara with genuine respect. Miss Williams, I'm making you an official offer. Technocore will sponsor your complete education, housing, schooling, and a full engineering scholarship to any university that accepts you. The parking lot erupted in fresh applause. Employees pressed against windows, many wiping away tears as they watched justice unfold in real time. Additionally, Dr. Vasquez continued, I'm creating a new position, Youth Innovation Consultant. Your job will be to observe our processes with fresh eyes and identify patterns we miss. Starting salary, $75,000 annually. Zara stared in shock. 6 months ago, she'd been sleeping in doorways. Tonight, she was being offered a future beyond her wildest dreams. I don't know what to say. Say yes, called out James Mitchell. We need more people who see what you see. The livestream chat exploded with celebration. #Zara deserves this trending globally. Viewers shared the video millions of times, each share carrying the same message. Talent has no address, no uniform, no prerequisites, except the willingness to pay attention. Local news vans arrived within minutes, alerted by the viral social media explosion. Reporters scrambled to capture the story of the homeless girl who'd outsmarted Silicon Valley's elite. But the most powerful moment came when Dr. Vasquez handed Zara an official Technocore employee badge. Welcome to the team, she said simply. Zara held the plastic card like it was made of gold. Her name is printed in official letters. Zara Williams, Youth Innovation Consultant. For the first time in 6 months, she had somewhere she belonged. The hypercar continued purring softly in the background, proof that sometimes the most important voices come from the most unexpected places. And sometimes, when powerful people fail, a 13-year-old girl steps forward and changes everything with 4 simple words, give me a minute. By midnight, the video had exploded across every social media platform on Earth. Billionaire CEO humiliated by homeless girl's genius, top trending lists in 17 countries. The footage of Hawthorne's vicious verbal assault followed by Zara's spectacular vindication had been viewed 12 million times and climbing. The comments were brutal and swift. This man is a monster for talking to a child like that. How can someone be so cruel to a homeless kid? That girl has more class than this billionaire will ever have. #Justice for Zara, #Karma is real. Inside Technocore's executive conference room, Hawthorne faced a nightmare scenario. His phone buzzed constantly with calls from investors, board members, and journalists. Each conversation was worse than the last. Richard, what were you thinking? Board Chairman Margaret Stevens's voice cut through the speakerphone like ice. The optics are catastrophic. A billionaire attacking a homeless child. It wasn't an attack, it was, we have the video, Richard. 12 million people have the video. You called a 13-year-old girl human garbage and diseased animal. What possible justification? She was trespassing, causing problems. She was sitting quietly on public property, then solved a problem that saved our company $500 million. Stevens's voice rose. Do you understand what you've done to our reputation? The board meeting that followed was swift and merciless. Technocore's stock had dropped 18% in after-hours trading. Major investors were threatening to pull funding. The carefully cultivated corporate image lay in ruins. Effective immediately, Stevens announced, you will issue a public apology to Miss Williams. You will establish a $10 million Youth Innovation Fund in her honor, and you will complete 200 hours of community service with homeless youth organizations. Hawthorne's face went white. Margaret, you can't. We can and we will. The alternative is your immediate termination and public disgrace. Choose. Meanwhile, the consequences rippled through every level of the company. Security guard Mike Thompson, whose harassment of Zara had been captured on multiple phones, found a termination notice on his desk by 1 a.m. Effective immediately for conduct unbecoming and creating liability exposure, read the HR document. The security footage of Thompson roughly shaking awake a sleeping 13-year-old had become its own viral moment. #security guard fired was trending alongside #justice for Zara. But the most devastating blow to Hawthorne's empire came from an unexpected source, his own employees. An internal company survey conducted anonymously revealed shocking statistics. 73% of Techno-Core workers reported witnessing Hawthorne's abusive behavior towards service staff, contractors, and visitors. 64% said they were actively seeking new employment due to the toxic work environment. "The man who built this company has become its greatest liability," wrote one engineer in the survey comments. Watching him attack that brave girl was the final straw. By dawn, 3 major news networks had picked up the story. Tech Billionaire's downfall goes viral dominated morning broadcasts. Employment lawyers were fielding calls from Techno-Core workers documenting years of abusive behavior. The company's HR department implemented emergency policy changes, mandatory sensitivity training for all executives, a whistleblower protection program, and new guidelines for respectful treatment of all individuals on company property. "We're not just changing policies," announced new HR Director Patricia Yang. "We're changing our culture. What happened to Miss Williams can never happen again." The morning brought Hawthorne's forced public apology, delivered from the same parking lot where he'd humiliated Zara. His words were hollow, his demeanor broken. The powerful man who'd crushed others with impunity now stood defeated by his own cruelty. "I was wrong," he said to cameras broadcasting live. "Miss Williams deserved respect, not ridicule. Her intelligence and character showed me how far I'd fallen from the values that should guide us all." The internet was unforgiving. The apology video received 5 million dislikes within hours. Justice, it seemed, had perfect timing and an excellent memory. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock. It live streams the entire reckoning for the world to witness. 6 months later, Zara Williams walked through Techno-Core's glass doors wearing her official employee badge and a smile that could power the building. The youth innovation program she'd inspired had identified 12 more overlooked talents from unexpected backgrounds. Her desk sat beside Dr. Vasquez's office, covered with engineering textbooks and notebooks filled with observations about everything from office workflow to prototype designs. The hypercar, now properly shielded and fully operational, had secured the largest funding round in company history. But the real transformation was deeper. Techno-Core's culture had shifted from fear-based hierarchy to collaborative innovation. Employees felt valued. Ideas flowed freely. The stock price had recovered and soared to record highs. As for Hawthorne, he'd completed his community service and discovered something unexpected. Helping homeless youth taught him more about leadership than 30 years of corporate dominance ever had. The next time you see someone society overlooks, remember Zara's story. That person might be holding the solution you've been searching for. Share this story if you believe talent has no uniform, no address, and no age limit. And tell us, if it were you watching that scene unfold, would you have had the courage to speak up? There's a detail only sharp-eyed viewers will notice at the 4:23 mark. Rewatch and see if you can spot what even the engineers missed. Subscribe to Blacktail's Stories if stories of underdogs changing the world inspire you to see potential where others see problems.